Hi everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read during the month of October. So in October I read 6 books in total. I actually ended up listening to that's a lie. I listened to one book on audio, so it was an audio book. I think 2 books were ebooks and then the other 3 were physical books. So yeah, I was going to do some long-winded intro, but I'm just going to ignore that and talk about the first book that I read. The first book that I read is 3 Little Truce, and this was a NetGalley arc. Every now and then I really like to dive into these sort of really easy reads. So this book is focused on the residents of Pine Road. It's focused around 3 characters, so Martha, Edie and Robin. And Martha is the new lady that moves onto the street, and this is the kind of street where like the women have a group chat, a bit like Desperate Housewives, I guess. It's actually set in Ireland, which I liked. I didn't know that. I have a little bit of a soft spot for Ireland. I actually was going to do my master's degree there, but they specifically focus on like Irish publishing a lot, and I wanted something that was more UK centric. Anyway, off on a tangent, but yeah, so it's about these it's about these women in a street in Ireland. I think it might be Dublin, I could be wrong. Anyway, an incident happens that means that Martha and her 2 children and her husband move to the road, and the other ladies are really curious about her. And you quickly find out as the story goes on that something happened to Martha and her family that caused her to move to this new street, and she really wants to sort of keep to herself. She's still trying to deal with the trauma of what happened, and her children are trying to deal with that trauma. And meanwhile there's like the residents are just, you know, being super nosy. They have their own personal problems. There's someone talking about how there's rats everywhere. There's an incident that happens at school. The book is positioning itself in like modern day times, in the sense that there had been a list that had gone on in the school. You know, it was a rape list essentially, and I think like these things are becoming more and more, I say more and more common. They probably were always there, but they're becoming pushed to the forefront, and people are saying this is really unacceptable. So there's that sort of incident there, and one of the peoples on the road is a head teacher. So it's just a mix of like this small road and the little community that they have basically. And we're obviously hearing from Martha about her incident. We hear from a character called Edie, who is trying to basically get pregnant, and her husband keeps being like, he doesn't really want kids at the moment, and she can't understand what the sudden shift in him is. And then there's also another character called Robin, who has moved back home to be with her mum after she's just sort of done away with her scummy boyfriend. And the basic premise of the story is that somehow these 3 ladies' stories are linked. So the incident that happened to Martha, the sort of, I guess, boyfriend of Robin, maybe, and then also the I don't know, there's also something to do with Edie as well. I don't want to give it away because otherwise it's just a bit like, what's the point of reading the book? So you're sort of reading it not really knowing how all their stories are going to tie in together, but they obviously do meet each other and start hanging out with each other because they're on this street. This book was just a nice, really easy read, and it's exactly what I wanted from it. It had a few twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, so that was good because I thought it was going down a really predictable route. But in the end I just liked it, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and yeah, I had a pleasant time reading it. The next book I'm going to speak about is The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. So I decided to just pick this up, even though like this month I'd sort of created like a mini TBR for myself, but I somehow haven't stuck to it. So yeah, I decided to pick this up, and I was so sad. Like, this is such a beautiful copy, and the day that I picked it up to go out, like I was going to uni I think, it was just tipping down, and this was in my tote bag, and it got completely ruined down here. But it's just got this like really nice like copper foiling on top of it. Anyway, the ABC Murders, I don't know what number in the Poirot, I cannot say it for the life of me, series this is, but this is to do with a murderer who is basically going around killing people in alphabetical order. The thing I will start off saying, by my one dislike about this book is, and this is going to sound so bad, I wish they'd gotten further into the killings, because really he makes it to ABC, I think skips D, and goes to E, sorry for that spoiler, and I just wish there was maybe a bit more killing in here. But obviously if you've ever read any Agatha Christie novels, and I'm saying this, I don't think I've ever read any Agatha Christie novels until this. Like, I've obviously heard of Agatha Christie, but it's not a gruesome, none of the stories are gruesome. It's more about the detective side of it and finding out like who done the murders rather than graphic descriptions of murder. But yeah, that is essentially the story. So we have Poirot and he is with his pal Hastings, which I am realising is the sort of, they're the partnership, they're the group who sort of find the killers alongside Scotland Yard. So yeah, we have Poirot and Hastings investigating a murder. At first they don't seem to think the murders are linked because they do take place in different towns, but someone is writing to Poirot, sort of taunting him and teasing him out and saying, can you like solve this murder basically. So Poirot has a very personal sort of affiliation to the case, and honestly it's just like I say, they're just trying to find out who the murderer is, and it's just like you as a reader are trying to see if you can pick up on any of the clues, but there are just so many red herrings, and I always say this, I'm terrible at detecting anything. Like, I'm really good at reading people and like seeing if people are hiding stuff, but I don't know if I could be a detective. Maybe I could actually. But anyway, but yeah, as a reader, you obviously, there's so many red herrings in here, and yeah, you follow them both around while they talk about the case, and sort of you figure out how they find the murderer. I think these books are so easy to read, and it's really easy to like just give away the whole plot if you talk about it in any more detail. I thought this book was okay. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I kept reading it because I wanted to know who the murderer was, and I think that's so important in books like this. Anyway, I'm going to stop butchering the name, but I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars because I really did enjoy it. The next book that I read was this little small essay collection from James Baldwin, and this is Dark Days. Really, I should have just read the book that I have from James Baldwin on my shelf, but I don't know, I was ordering something and I just wanted to order a book, but I was really conscious that I have a lot of books and I didn't have any money, so I was just like, what do I want to order? This was £1, so it can go alongside my Audre Lorde one. But this is 3 essays from James Baldwin, and I've never read any of his stuff, and it contains the essays Dark Days, The Price of the Ticket, and The White Man's Guilt. What struck me about these essays really is the fact that nothing has changed. Like, it's so bad like to say that nothing has changed, and yeah, obviously things have changed, but so much of what he's talking about, I'm just like, same issues today. Obviously this is talking about African Americans as well, but there's just so much that I think is still relevant to black people living in Britain. First essay, Dark Days, I think is mainly focused on how he sort of grew up in the Depression, how he sort of found the jobs that he had, and yeah, it's just sort of navigating through those dark days. The essay The Price of the White Ticket is a very interesting one. It's basically talking about the price of freedom, and I think it is he mentioned some really important things that I remember, like I was going to say outlining, highlighting, or just underlining, because I thought it was spectacular. But yeah, he mentioned, we were fighting the Second World War. We. Who was this we? For this war was being fought, as far as I could tell, to bring freedom to everyone with the exception of Hager's children and the yellow-bellied Japs. And he's basically talking about the sort of propaganda and the messaging that was going around in America, you know, obviously asking people to enlist, and he's just thinking, you know, you're asking all these people, but most of these people, like, you know, black people, people of colour that you're asking, are not going to receive any of these sort of dreams that you're selling them. I thought that was just very interesting. He then goes on to talk about, obviously, the state of America. So he's talking about people like enlisting in the army and things like that, and sort of joining these institutions in America that really don't protect them or aim in any way to serve them. And there's one that he says, that line that he says that I'm just in love with. He says, the will of the people or the state is ruled by the state's institution. There was not then, nor is there now, a single American institution which is not a racist institution. And racist institutions are meant to keep people in his place. Yes, we have lived through avalanches of tokens and concessions, but white power remains white. And what it appears to surrender with one hand, it obsessively clutches in the other. And I just thought, wow. Where I said people, it actually says I'm meant to keep the nigger in his place. So obviously he's specifically referring to African American descendants of slavery, but generally black people, but obviously the term being used in America for that reason. And it was just such an interesting essay to me. I was just blown away by it, because I also, that last sentence, and what it appears to surrender with one hand, it obsessively clutches in the other. I think definitely we can find a lot of institutions that are definitely quite guilty of that. And even again, when I think of Britain and the UK, like I think of that's also occurring as well. So it was just a really, really interesting one about I guess the price of freedom in America. And the final essay collection is called The White Man's Guilt, and it starts like this. I have often wondered, and it's not a pleasant wonder, just what white Americans talk about with one another. I wonder this because they do not, after all, seem to find very much to say to me, and I concluded long ago that they found the colour of my skin inhibitory. And this collection is essentially what it says on the title. It is a sort of plea, I guess, to the white man, to just realise people as people rather than this whole thing of you're black and therefore you're quite undeserving of X, Y, Z. It's a very poignant one. I also really like this one, and this was also one that I found myself outlining a lot of things to. Like he says here, white man hear me, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, a child is a child. And yeah, he goes on to talk about the sort of guilt aspect that comes with the sort of shocking things that have happened in the past. It was a really eye-opening piece, and I really enjoyed it, and I like these little Penguin classics as little introductions to some of these essay topics. So the next book that I read was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. I ended up reading this because, I don't know, the Kindle thing promoted me something and it was free, so I was like, okay, I can read it. And basically, I think I started reading this, like around halfway through October. Halfway through October, I just was not in a good place. I really didn't want to do a lot, and yeah, I was just really quite low and depressed, so I really wanted to read things that were just easy for me to get through. I didn't want to have to think about it too much. I wanted to read it as a distraction. So yeah, I picked this up, and this one I really actually liked. I liked because, again, I did not see the twist coming. But the murder of Roger Ackroyd, so there is a murder of a man, he's an old man, and basically Poirot, I think this is actually number 1 in the series. No, sorry, it's number 4. Number 1 I'll talk about later. So it's number 4 in the sort of Hercules, the Belgian Man series. That's what I'm just going to call it from now on so I can stop butchering it. And so yeah, this man gets murdered in his house, and you know, Poirot, the Belgian Man, is questioning the sort of I don't want to call them servants, but I think that's actually what they're called in that time. The servants in the house and like the other visitors that he had, because he had like his niece there, the niece's mother, so his sister, cousin, I don't know, his sister I think. His sort of exiled son who he put in another place, and then there's also a doctor. So these were all the people that were in the house at the time, but they were coming and going, and it's basically trying to find out again, obviously, who murdered this guy. And obviously everyone has their own little secrets that they're hiding, so you're not sure if they're lying because they did the murder or because they've done something else that they don't want anyone else to know. So it's about taking you around these sort of twists and turns, all these little roundabouts and curved roads, and you think, aha, this person has done it. No, they have not done it. Murder mystery. I can't say any more than that, but it was a good read. Again, it helped me take my mind off things, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because I didn't see the end coming. I was just a bit like, and the reason why I found this book so great is because the person who was writing it, so in this book, Hastings, the little sidekick, is in there, and usually Hastings apparently is the person who authors this, so we're hearing it from Hastings' perspective. This is authored by someone else, and he was just very witty. The things that he would say about his sister or about like the Belgian Man or other people were just really witty, and I found them really funny, so I really appreciated that. But yeah, definitely didn't see the twist coming. So the next book that I read is a book that I listened to on audiobook, and that is Eleanor Elephant is Completely Fine. I read this book last year and absolutely loved it, and I decided to listen to it on audiobook because it was on script, and I just, the way I was feeling, I had a hankering for that book, and I knew like that was the book I needed. But again, like at that point I was really in a state to read, so I was just like, I'm just going to listen to the book. And this book is just so brilliant because it explores that topic of loneliness. It explores a lot more than loneliness, but that is basically the crux of the story. So if you've not heard about what Eleanor Elephant is about, Eleanor Elephant is about a woman who is growing up in Glasgow. I think growing up, she's already a grown-ass woman. She's like 28, 29 because she has her 30th birthday during the book. We're following Eleanor in her life, and we quickly learn that Eleanor has a very set routine that doesn't allow for her to make friends because that's the way she's sort of chosen. She has a 9-to-5 job, eats like from the meal deal every single week, goes home every single day, comes back to work the next day, and then every single weekend, like the Friday, she goes and gets a margarita pizza and 2 bottles of vodka, and basically, yeah, your girl's gone during the weekend. You're not hearing from her. She is drunk, but not like drunk out partying drunk. She's drunk like in her flat, passed out. And that is what her weekends are like, until a sort of chance, I say meeting, but there's not really, an incident occurs with a random old man in the street who falls over, and a colleague that she is with, Raymond, who randomly she gets talking to because her computer gets a virus. They are walking out together and they see him, and because of this incident their lives are basically pulled together. And it is through like Raymond that she sort of learns friendship. She learns to talk about the things that have happened to her, because you're quickly let known in the book that Eleanor has a traumatic past. She's got some facial scarring as a result. I don't know, my camera just cut out, so I don't really know what happened. I don't remember where I left off. Anyway, this book just continues to follow Eleanor from this point of having to sort of take this guy Sammy to the hospital, and sort of what that entails, and sort of how their lives are all joined together after, because Sammy is a sweet wee man, and you know, he's so grateful for these two for taking the time to call the ambulance and then visit him later. So he gets sort of drawn in, they get drawn into his life as well when they like meet his family and things like that, and it's just really nice. And what's I guess funny about this book is Eleanor's sort of sarcasm, and I guess the way she doesn't pick up on social cues, or doesn't understand a lot of the sort of things most people do. A lot of people have commented on the fact that Eleanor might be autistic, but I don't actually think the author, Gail Honeyman, has ever said that. I think she probably could have been writing about an autistic character, but I think she just wanted to write about someone who had been quite sheltered, like growing up from sort of all these normal social interactions, that she doesn't understand a lot of things. And it's really funny because when she does explain things, you're kind of like, why is that normal? Like, so funny. And I don't know like how funny it is like outside of like a UK context as well, because I don't think a lot of the things are UK specific, but some of the things might be. But yeah, there's just loads of funny little tidbits like that makes it really funny. And then whilst that's happening, you're sort of getting little flashbacks and insight into her past. I just really liked the book because it was what I needed at that time. I was feeling quite lonely, like my life is not like Eleanor's, but I was feeling quite lonely, and it was that exploration of what it's like when you open yourself up, that life can be a lot better than what you thought it was going to be and how you thought the rest of your life was going to be. So that's why I just thought I had to give it another listen, and honestly it did me so much good. It's funny, it obviously ends really well, it ends like with hope. It's a really nice book that I think has been tied up really nicely. So yeah, I stuck with my original rating of that book, which I think was 5 out of 5 stars. It's really interesting actually, because I went to look at the reviews on Goodreads just whilst I was listening to it. And I think the reviews are quite like average, they're 3 or 4 stars or whatever, but I was looking at some of the bad reviews about it because I was just like, I don't know what people couldn't like about this book, so I want to see what they're saying. And some of them are just bloody hilarious because I can see what they're saying, but I'm still like, I really love this book, which I think is a good testament to the book and to like, I guess, how readers read books. Does that make sense? I don't know. But I think it's a good testament to the book because I'm just like, even though like sometimes I can read reviews of books that I've read and I'm like, actually I didn't notice that, actually that's quite true, and then I feel differently about them. But reading those reviews, I wasn't like I feel any different about them. I was just like, freaking adored this book. But yeah, that's my little insight there. So the final book I'm going to talk about is again another Agatha Christie book, and this one I think I actually paid for it myself. Yeah, because the other two I didn't. I think it was 99p, so I was just a bit like, I've been reading it and I want to continue reading it. I did perk up towards the end of the month, I feel fine now. This book is A Mysterious Affair at Styles, and I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5. I just finished it and I was like, meh, it was okay. But it's the first one in the series. This is the first one in the series. You don't have to read them in order because none of the crimes match each other. It's just, you know, you can read them whenever, but they're obviously, like, she's written them one after the other, whatever, like that. So The Mysterious Affair at Styles, I was so bored by it. Like, I wasn't bored when I was reading it, it was just more I got to the end and I was just like, that was a bloody waste of my time. But again, a murder takes place. The murder of Emily takes place. Emily is an old woman. I'd probably put her in her 80s or something like that. And she has 2 children, but they are not her biological children. They are the children of her previous husband. And yeah, they also live in the house with her, and one of them has a wife and also lives in the house with her. It's so funny when I hear these things about like the 2 kids also live at home and then they have a wife, because I'm imagining like mansions sprawled everywhere. Like I'm like, wow, like these people must have so much space. But in some of the books they draw the floor plan, that's it, the floor plan, so you can see it, and I'm like, that doesn't actually look that big. Like my imagination was just running wild. But yeah, so they live with her, and then there's like some other sort of house girls or maids, and in this particular one this is where we're introduced to Hastings. So Hastings has come to stay at Styles because he's invited by one of the brothers, which I think is John, has invited him. Anyway, he's invited by one of the brothers, and whilst he's there for a couple of days. I think maybe on like the 3rd day or something, Emily dies. She dies. It's very, not gruesome, but it's very like vivid and expressive. She is basically having fits, and they can all hear it in the house, so they come to her and then basically witness her die. And before she dies, she says a name. She says Alfred, and Alfred is the name of her current husband. And loads of people don't like Alfred because they think he's just with her for the money, and boom, the woman is dead, so guess who gets all the money when she dies, and the property or whatever. I think actually the properties are signed over to someone else. So you're basically trying to find out, why was she murdered? Did Alfred actually murder her? Were her last words of accusation, or was she calling out for him? And if Alfred didn't murder her, who did murder her? And what does anyone stand to gain from murdering her? This was the only one that I've read so far that has actually gone to court. In the case of trying to pin the murder on someone, then it doesn't go their way, or as in they don't get to accuse that person because there's not enough evidence, and so it continues. So I thought that was quite different, but obviously this is also the one that's the first in the series, so maybe as I read on, other people will go to court. But again, it's just a simple case of so many red herrings, so many other little stories are happening, people are lying about certain things, other people are just being really dodgy and suspicious, but is it really them, is it not? This one had quite a nice little twist in it, but I also feel like it's the twist that really bored me, because I was just like, have we not been here already? I'm not excited by this ending, I'm not excited that it is so and so. So that's why I just didn't enjoy it, because I was just like, no, you could have made it somebody else. But like I said, they have just been like really good, easy reads for me, and they have been what I needed. So I've enjoyed like the second half of my reading month, even if I wasn't having the best time. But yeah, I have also knocked myself off my TBR because I just couldn't read those books. I just didn't want to read those books. But yeah, those were the books that I read in the month of October. If you're an Agatha Christie fan, please do let me know about what other books I should read by her. I definitely know Pauline will comment because she absolutely loves Agatha Christie, but I don't know, I'm still going to read some of her other books. I'm actually currently listening to one on audiobook because I have the Scribd app and it's part of my subscription, so I can listen to it. So now that I'm in that sort of headspace, I'm trying to like get through them, but I'll probably leave it for a bit and move on to other books. But yeah, that is all from me. If you have read any of the books that I've spoken about, or would just like to have a little chat in the comments, please do leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.